House of the Dragon comes out in August, and fans are hyped. The Game of Thrones prequel is all about the fall of House Targaryen, and it looks pretty epic. What's more, it looks like HBO is using the series to clear up some of the lore. Ever since Season 1, fans thought Daenerys and her entire family were immune to fire. Here's how House of the Dragon will finally put that misconception to rest. Firstly, let's go over what the issue is. When you're adapting a fantasy epic like Game of Thrones for TV, you're bound to lose something in the translation. Every single book in the series is massive, clocking in at around 1,000 pages each. With that many words to cover, it was basically impossible to get everything on screen. You'd need billions of dollars to make something like that happen, and even HBO doesn't have that kind of dough. And one of the biggest victims of those limitations has been the magic on the show. The series has just never been able to flesh out the supernatural elements of Westeros as well as the books did. The writers have gotten better at it over the years, but some fans have been wrong about certain characters for a while. Just take Daenerys' powers for example. Viewers have actually had the wrong idea about her relationship with fire and dragons for years. That's right, House Targaryen doesn't have the powers we think it does. You heard that right. Like Jon Snow's warning and the Night King's wintry powers, the abilities of House Targaryen have been a major source of confusion for the fandom. Many people think Daenerys is immune to fire, along with the rest of the Targaryens. Believe it or not, that's not actually true. It's actually a pretty common misconception among die-hard fans of the show. This whole thing started when Daenerys survived the heat of Khal Drogo's cremation. The Season 1 finale had her walk into the funeral pyre while holding her dragon eggs. The flames hatched the eggs but didn't harm her at all, leading viewers to believe that fire couldn't hurt her. There was tons of evidence to support the theory too. We're sure you remember the scene where Daenerys just casually enters a tub full of steaming hot water. That was a pretty big clue, and since Daenerys was the only Targaryen in the story at that point, fans naturally assumed that everyone in her family was fireproof. The Targaryens are linked pretty closely to that kind of magic after all. Their house sigils and crests are full of dragon imagery, and they're said to have the blood of dragons inside them. Keeping that in mind, it's pretty easy to see why fans believed what they did. As it turns out though, no one in the Targaryen line is actually immune to fire. It's actually a lot more complicated than that, and it looks like House of the Dragon is going to explain everything. Even though Game of Thrones gave us tons of lore about the family, the show never quite clarified how Daenerys' powers work. Sure, we got a ton of info about figures like the Mad King Rhaegar and Aegon the Conqueror, but we never actually learned what those characters could do. We always just assumed they were fireproof conquerors like Daenerys, but that's about to change in a big way. George R.R. Martin, the author of the books and one of the creators of House of the Dragon, has said that the Targaryens are actually a lot like the Starks. Each of the Stark children bonds with their direwolf, and many members of the Targaryen clan sleep with dragon eggs as children. That doesn't mean that they literally have dragon blood running through their veins though. The whole dragon blood thing actually refers to the Targaryens' origins. The family is actually one of the Dragon Lord families from the distant land of Valyria. That's where they first encountered dragons and gained a reputation for taming them. When the people of Westeros say that the Targaryens have the blood of dragons, they actually mean it in a symbolic way. Targaryens have dragon blood in the sense that they have fiery natures, and they've learned how to tame and ride dragons. That ability isn't really unique because other families from Valyria had the same skills. In fact, the Valyrians from House of the Dragon will be able to do everything that the Targaryens can. But how did Dany survive the fire from Season 1? Well, the answer to that question is a little less satisfying. Martin has actually confirmed that Dany only survived the flames because of the birth of her 3 dragons. The magic of the eggs hatching protected her from all that heat. If she hadn't had those eggs with her and they hadn't hatched, Daenerys would have been toast. Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion were the first dragons to be born in Westeros in 150 years. That made it a major magical event, and we all know the magic of Game of Thrones works in mysterious ways. Get this, the miracle of the dragons being born is supposed to be what saved Daenerys from certain death. The specifics of how dragon magic works are pretty vague. Here's what might have happened. The eggs needed so much energy to hatch that they absorbed all of the heat from the pyre. If that's what happened, Dany survived by pure dumb luck. That's just a theory though. The only thing Martin has confirmed is that the eggs saved Daenerys, and the Targaryens aren't actually immune to fire. That makes sense because otherwise, Viserys wouldn't have died when Khal Drogo poured molten gold over his head. What's more, House of the Dragon is going to put an end to all those misconceptions, and it's going to get pretty gnarly. The show is actually about a Targaryen civil war, and it'll prove that no one in the house is flameproof. With different sides using their dragons against each other, it's going to get heated in more ways than one. The show is based on Martin's 2018 novel, Fire and Blood, and we know from the book that tons of Targaryens are going to burn to death. We'll save you from spoilers if you want to go into the series fresh, but trust us when we say it's not going to be pretty. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, that's just another reason to get excited about the show's August premiere. And now, let's get into some other news related to the hit fantasy franchise. First up, it looks like the Game of Thrones books will end differently. George R.R. Martin himself just confirmed that the last 2 entries in the unfinished book series will have a different climax. Fans are super relieved to hear it too, because no one was happy with how the series wrapped up. In a recent blog post, the author laid their worries to to rest by saying he's been shaking up the plot. He's promised that the books will be very different from the TV show. Of course, a bunch of elements from the final few seasons will carry over to his next few novels. That said, the rest of the story is going to differ in some big ways. Martin went on to say that some characters who died in the show will survive the books, while other on-screen survivors might not make it. In fact, he's guaranteed that the series will have a pretty different ending. That's got everyone hyped for the books again, but we might have to wait a while before they come out. Let's just hope Martin gets done with the writing quickly. Next, a Game of Thrones star shares his views on potential return. If you're a Thrones fan, you've probably heard of the new spin-off series starring Kit Harington as Jon Snow. The show is going to be a sequel to the original series, which means some of the original cast might be coming back. One actor who just weighed in is John Bradley, who played Samwell Tarly on the show. Bradley says that he and the rest of the cast felt free after the series ended. That's because they'd been carrying those characters with them for a while. Even though he was happy with how he ended his run on the show, Bradley says he'd be interested in returning to Westeros. He even invited HBO to send him a script for the Jon Snow project. Honestly, we'd love to see what Samwell's been up to, and this is a pretty great way to bring him back. Let's hope HBO can make it happen. Finally, a Game of Thrones star just landed a new role. That's right, actor Tom Vlashiha has a new project coming out. Vlashiha most recently played Dmitry Antonov in Season 3 of Stranger Things, but Game of Thrones fans will know him for playing Jaqen H'ghar, the faceless man who trained Arya. That's old news though, because the actor will now play a major role in Hilma. The movie is a biopic focusing on the life of Swedish artist Hilma of Klint, and it'll be directed by Lasse Hallström. Vlashiha's going to play Rudolf Steiner, an Austrian artist who served as a mentor to Hilma back in the day. The film is currently in post-production, but reports suggest it'll come out in theaters and streaming soon. That's a wrap for this video. Were we able to clear up your questions about the Targaryens? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.